From the View My Sports studios, it's The Breakdown with your hosts, Roger Tillis and Chuck Olesker.
Today on The Breakdown, he's got two daughters, one playing softball for Division I program, and the other currently playing softball and going through the recruiting process in high school. Welcome, Chris Taylor. Hey, good day to everybody. Welcome to The Breakdown. We've got a great show today. I'm your host, Roger Tillis, here with Chuck Olesker, our co-host and engineer, and a special guest, really a treat today. We've got Chris Taylor joining us. Chris, you won't recognize from ESPN. You won't recognize from Sports Illustrated. Chris is just your average Joe. He is a dad. And why would that be important? Well, he's a dad of two fantastic athletes. One, Morgan Taylor, who plays softball for Georgia Tech, and Kelly Taylor, who plays for our local high school here at Mandarin High School. And they are both heavily involved in softball. And, of course, at the helm is their father, Chris Taylor, along with his wife, Renee. Anybody out there that has obviously participated in sports, be it the athlete or the parent, you know it's complex. The recruiting aspect is just crazy. So we wanted to bring Chris in because he's got one on both ends. And now you don't have any other girls coming up along the line, do you? So,
nope.
This will be it.
Yes,
this will be it.
The beginning and the end.
Well, as everybody out there in our audience knows, we try to focus on what is helpful to not just the student athlete, but the parents and even the coaches, be it high school or collegiate. The whole idea is for us to share the information that is helpful. And I think, Chuck, up to this point, we've been pretty darn good about,
absolutely.
Not just through the website, giving you the tools to, motivate and to get better and to circulate your information with the college programs. But, we found that through the breakdown, we're able to actually share real-life experiences such as Chris's. And we're going to get into some information from the beginning stages, the middle, the end, and kind of what's on the horizon going forward. And hopefully, we feel that the information that we're going to share today is going to trigger something with some of you parents and athletes out there, and you think, that's what I need to do. Or, boy, I've been there. I don't feel alone anymore. So, whatever we can do to help. And, of course, as always, after the show, if there's something you need to discuss that's specific to your situation, go to www.viewmysport.com, click on Contact Us, send in your questions and in your situations and what you need help with. We have got a slew of advisors for helping you through whatever phase of the recruiting process that you happen to be in. So anyway, I say let's get started. I'm pretty excited.
Crack.
Hey, Chris, again, thank you so much for being here. We're gonna have a good time. Now, again, two daughters. One's already in college. One's currently in high school. I as a matter of fact, before the show, I got a chance to meet them. You can see some obvious physical differences, but they're how far apart? Morgan's what year in college?
Morgan's a freshman. She'll be going into her sophomore year in college, and Kelly is going to be a junior in high school.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So obviously several years between. Mm-hmm. Now, kind of curious. Differences, likenesses, I mean, from a softball and from a student perspective. Get into that a little bit. How are they different?
Well, first off, as we talked earlier, and you got to meet them, their personalities, there's one of them maybe more academically, aggressively pursues good grades and has a very high level of work ethic, and the other one is basically more athletically gifted, and part of that is because she's been around the game watching it and playing it while the older sisters, worked her way into college. So one of them has a natural athletic ability and a higher IQ for the sport.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so you have to stress almost a little bit more the importance of academics to the younger one because, she can be successful on the field, but she's got to be successful in the classroom.
Excellent point. And that's something please pay attention to that. Anytime we start touching on the academic aspect, please pay attention.
Right.
Yeah. Good point. Now, let me ask you this. So you've got the older daughter. You got Morgan, and of course, this is your first go-round as far as sports and all that. Now, when did she first start getting involved with softball?
She started basically in a T-ball league here in the local community back when she was probably 5 or 6 years old.
Wow, early on. Okay.
And softball became very popular probably around her 8-year-old range. She started playing from a pitching machine, and then progressed into coach pitch, and then into where they actually had fast pitch leagues.
Now, what about Kelly? Did she follow the same path?
Yes, and a great example where some of the funnest times of their life were where they were playing on the same T-ball team. And,
Oh, nice.
Playing together, having fun. She's just had a couple of extra years of exposure to it as a younger kid, but they have all started about the same age. I'd say 5 to 6 years old, and some people may say, well, that's way too young. We made it fun. We made it fun.
There you go. Yeah, it wasn't like you were already trying to measure them for their caps and gowns and their scholarship path and all that. When they're just hiking the bat up. That's.
Oh yeah.
Now I have to ask you, and we'll talk about some typical myths and things that people just assume. Now the assumption I think out there is like, second daughter's got it made. She's got big sister to follow to see where the successes were and the mistakes. So obviously she's going to be so much better and so much more gifted. That I don't think that's always the case now. In your case, though, I believe you stated that Kelly is more of the athlete, is more the gifted, from an athletic standpoint. Now, do you actually see the fact that her older sister is there, is that the contributing factor, or was it a combination of things? Explain that if you wouldn't mind.
I think the gift that the younger daughter gets from the older daughter is being able to see success and failure along the journey, and you can eliminate a lot of the trial and error that takes place as a child trying to be successful in athletics, and then a parent trying to be successful as a parent, trying to help that child be successful. The natural athletic ability comes because you're more knowledgeable of the game, and you've already you go and work out with your older sister for 3 years. You're naturally going to be stronger and faster than she was.
A lot more confident.
Yeah, a lot more confident, and you end up with an advantage because of the path that your older sibling has paved for you. But there's also some downside to that because there's an expectation level.
I was just going to ask you that, the extra pressure.
Yes, there's extra pressure, and I have to find, even as a father, and sometimes a father and a coach, that I don't put that pressure on my younger daughter because I want her to love the game, play it with a passion, and enjoy it, and know that she's doing it for herself, not because I expect her to do the same thing that her older sister did.
Excellent.
So there's definitely some challenges.
Excellent point.
Yeah.
And you bring in a subject that I feel is important, especially for the parents out there with multiple children, be it that they all play the same sport or whatever the case may be. I think, and again, as a parent, your natural ability is, eliminate any of the, clear the path, clear any of the potential mistakes they can make. But actually, I think by allowing the second and the third child coming up, as a parent, okay, they're getting ready to, hit the brick wall. Instead of moving that wall out of the way, you say, okay, I'm still going to let them hit it because I want to see how they react, how they learn from the same mistakes.
Absolutely.
And I think that's a mistake that a parent makes. They try to make the next child, it be easier. Well, if the kid doesn't know how to handle adversity, then they're going to be in for a rude awakening, because especially as you get a higher level of sports, it's nothing but challenges and potential disappointments.
Oh yeah, game of failure in most cases, and you got to know how to overcome it.
Sure. Now, is Morgan? I imagine they were pretty competitive, especially when they got to play on the same team.
Oh, yeah.
Do you see Morgan taking a pretty proactive role? I mean, as far as helping her sister, or is it more of a no? You know what? I'm going to let you flounder. I'm going to let you learn how to stand on your own 2 feet. I mean, what do you see there as far as the sibling activity?
One of the most rewarding times in my life with one daughter already in the college level is that she has taken the mentoring process and actually helped my younger daughter understand what reality is at the college level. That,
very nice.
There's nothing that I've ever been able to do as a parent or a coach to prepare my older daughter for what goes on in a college program, mentally, physically, time management and all that. But Morgan has been able to actually help Kelly with understanding, it's not what you're working towards. When you get here, the work doesn't stop. It just begins. So
Sure.
she actually can use that life lesson that Morgan's been helping her with as a selling point to any college to say, look, I know what it takes. The expectation level is not just to come in here and put on a uniform and eat free food. It's to come in here and start working, and workouts at 6, games at 10, and know the drill. So that's where Morgan has been probably the best asset, the best testimony to Kelly, or quite honestly quite a few athletes in the community.
Certainly.
So she's helped them understand.
Well, you're getting that firsthand experience, and that's, they talk about referrals and real firsthand experience and things like that. To have your sister be in that role is outstanding. Now, on the flip side, I would think, from Morgan's standpoint, to be able to, you talk about to be able to go back and all. Well, in a way, she kind of has that chance to look back, and she can watch her younger sister, and it kind of reminds her of that aspect, because I hear a lot from the athletes that go into the college level. Everything happens so fast.
Yeah.
There's just so much going on. They almost forget that fun aspect when it was first becoming competitive, but it was still fun.
Right.
And it's nice to have your younger sister coming up behind you, so you can always be reminded of that. I would think that there's some pleasantness there, from that relationship.
And that is probably it's an unbelievable way to look at that, because the biggest challenge that I had as a parent with a daughter and keep in mind, my daughter went to this D1 program and played 57 out of 58 games. We expected her never even to see the field.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Wow.
So, but by the time the end of this first year had arrived, she basically had hit the wall mentally and physically. And that, Dad, it's just, it's almost like it's not fun anymore. And so as a parent, you don't really know what to do, because like you say, you got to let them kind of grow through these challenges.
Certainly. And
the value of coming back and watching Kelly play at the high school level, it brought her back kind of this couple of weeks that she's home before she goes back to school, is for reflection, to allow her to come back and talk about how much fun she used to have. And her and Kelly are talking back and forth about, well, there's our T-ball field. You remember when, we did this?
Nice.
And, they'll go back and they'll take their $2.50 trophy, and it'll be sitting in the room, and they can reflect on when this was fun. And,
Sure.
And I think that's part of the preparation to help a child know that it is going to be different, but you still can love the game and play it with passion. And
you bet.
And the youngest one has learned that, Kelly's learned to play it with passion, not emotion, because passion's going to see you through all the challenges. And that's
Right.
really what Morgan and I talk about quite a bit, is you got to play the game because of the love and passion of it, not be emotional about it.
Well, I tell you, that's really good to hear, because, in the recruiting process, in that environment, it's all about getting to the next level, getting, achieving and getting your skills. You don't hear a lot about the real life aspects. And I know, Chuck, you and I have talked about this. I know when you were going through the process with your son, and there's so many different paths that you don't even know about.
Right.
At the end of that recruiting process, things that you're not even thinking about that could happen, and you think, hey, well, you know what? That's okay.
Right.
It worked out okay. Be it, going and playing the sport or just getting into college or whatever the case may be. There's so much to get into. And it's good to hear, Chris, you share some of that, and especially the situation with Morgan and Kelly and their relationship, and the fun. And we don't get enough of the fun. Yes, winning is fun. Sure, losing sucks. We nobody wants to lose. But somewhere in between, you still got to have fun.
Right.
If you're not having fun, then if you do lose, it's horrible. There's nothing to get out of it.
Right.
And that's the whole idea behind sports. So if you can keep it fun and use it to your advantage from a challenge, and compete and help you in your driving attitude as you grow and get out there amongst the the living in the real world, be it a career or whatever the case may be. All of these things, they're life lessons. They do translate into what we have to do after sports or whatever the case may be. Now, let me ask you something. I know you're heavily involved in association ball and things. You coached. I believe you're actually involved in the association itself. Now, Morgan, did she play association and high school ball, or did she kind of favor one versus the other? I mean, take us through that, because there's a lot of talk about one versus the other, which is better, and all of this, and it's really good. We've already heard a coach's standpoint on what they think, and everybody's going to be different. From your standpoint, first of all, tell us, did Morgan play both? Is Kelly playing association in addition to high school? Tell us about that.
Okay. Yeah, we typically, and the good news I'm here to say, and this is not the case in most high school programs, that both of my daughters play both sports. As a matter of fact, there's a saying in athletics that you only have so many softball games in your arm. In your swing, in your ankles, in your knees.
Sure.
And female athletes are built a little bit differently than male athletes, and pitching wise, they don't say that you have a shelf life, but you do. There's proven facts that you got 6 years of competitive softball in you. How do you want to use those 6 years?
Good point.
How do you best use them?
Good point.
We had a fantastic coach and a fantastic high school program. We have probably, I would consider to be one of the state's leading travel ball programs or club programs. And I would not, if at all possible, advise people to eliminate one over the other. I think they both serve a purpose. I will tell you that the high school program, there's memories that both of my daughters have had that will never be taken away from them because of their high school. There was a pride, the ability to represent their high school program is something that is such a large part of their life, their high school, their friendships and things that were made. And then that part of the journey between recreation ball and high school ball should be fun and development. But there is going to come a time where the softball IQ and the athleticism and the level of competition that you're going to play has to change. And high school is competitive, but it is not going to be near at the competitive level that a travel ball team will play at.
Sure.
So therefore, you gotta either try to balance them both. And most of the travel ball organizations that I've been a part of have always respected the high school programs, and we typically will not even practice until the high school program is over.
I was going to say the travel ball typically follows throughout the summer.
Yes.
So it's not necessarily interfering from a scheduling, from a conflicting, okay.
And typically we're partners with most of the high schools. As a matter of fact, I can go get the keys. I probably can get into 10 high schools right now and use their fields because they understand that we respect them and the kids are being taught to represent your high school first.
I tell you, that is outstanding, and that's something that I think that our audience can really benefit from because, again, in this drive to be competitive, in this drive to beat out the other person and to find that edge, and we've heard this, high school ball, you're not going to get the competition, you're not going to get the looks because college softball's taking place at the same time, the coaches can't come down. We get that. And it is a strategy standpoint. But if you're a good ball player and you can do both, I think, and I agree with you 100%, again, being a high school sports purist, as I like to proclaim, I love high school sports. And I think the more that you can get involved with the high school level sports, I think you get something out of it that you don't get out of the other. Now, yes, you don't get out of high school sports what you could get out of from the travel ball and the level of those tournaments and things like that. I agree with you. I think there's a way to find that combination where you can do both. And unfortunately, there are some coaches out there that disagree and say, nah, it's either mine or none. And you know what? There's really nothing that you can say to combat that because it is the coach's final word. And if the coach on the high school team or the travel team puts their foot down, well, then parents and athletes, you have to have a discussion. You have to make a decision and then try to find a way around it. to still accomplish your goal of getting noticed at the collegiate level, whatever the case may be. Tell you what, now's a great time to take a break. We're gonna bail out for a few seconds. We'll be right back. When we come back, we're gonna continue this conversation, and we're gonna talk about the travel and elite and association ball, because I think that's the sticking point for a lot of parents and athletes, where they start floundering a little bit and they feel lost and they feel pressured. And so we're gonna try to tackle that a little bit more in detail, and see if we can help out some of you parents and athletes out there so that your path will be a little more clear. So again, join us in a few minutes. We'll be right back.
At Marsh & McLennan Agency, we understand the property and casualty market. We use our technical expertise and utilize a consultative approach to design a risk management program that's just right for you. Some of the many products and services Marsh & McLennan Agency can provide in the areas of property and casualty insurance market include general commercial liability tailored to specific industries, directors and officers, errors and omissions, and other professional liability, workers' compensation, self-insurance plans, construction, fidelity and surety bonds, wholesale, surplus lines, and specialty products, personal lines including homeowners, automobile, and umbrella policies. Let Marsh & McLennan Agency help you identify, plan for, and respond to critical business issues and risks. For more information, call Marsh & McLennan Agency today at 888-292-9806. That's 888-292-9806.
All right, and we're back. Welcome back here on this great edition of The Breakdown. I'm Roger Tillis, your host, here with Chuck Olesker, co-host and engineer, director. Can you go get me some coffee with that?
Yes, Mr.
All right,
Tillis.
we'll draw the line on his responsibilities. I thought I could finagle something out of him. Anyway, we're also joined here by a fantastic guest today, Chris Taylor, parent of not just a college athlete, but also a high school athlete at the same time. That's talking about taking its toll on a parent. Yeah. I mean, I went through it with one. You went through it with one. I mean, to do it two girls and that close, boy, that can. I guess it's like having kids and having twins. They say, go ahead and have twins or triplets, get it all out of the way in one shot.
Yeah. That's right.
Now, before we went to break on our last section, we were talking about the all or nothing between the travel ball and whatnot. And during the break, we were talking about coaches' attitudes, and it's not just at the high school level, but at the collegiate level as well. You're going to run into hundreds of thousands of different attitudes. I mean, we're talking humans. Coaches are humans. I know some of you might not think so. Some of them come across differently. But the fact is, you have got to ask questions and get to know these coaches, because their attitude towards things could greatly affect you, to the positive or to the negative. And if you think that you can kind of force yourself and just say, I'll wing it and I'll see how it goes when I get there, that's not the answer. If you're having problems during the recruiting process with a coach and you're not necessarily seeing eye to eye, and by default you happen to end up there, chances are you're probably not going to have a pleasant experience. It's not going to be good for you. It's not going to be good for the team. It certainly won't bode well, for the college itself. So, that's a tip that we want to make sure that we get across. Really do your research, really talk to these coaches. And we'll probably get into a little bit of that later in the show. Tell you what, right now, exciting time. We love to get into the Athlete of the Week, the ViewMySport.com Athlete of the Week. With that, Chuck, take it away, brother.
Thank you, Roger. Once again, it's amazing that we see the quality of student athlete that comes through that's been a part of View My Sport for all this time, and this week's Athlete of the Week is no slouch. Haley Reesonme of the Cougars of College Heights Christian School in Joplin, Missouri.
Nice.
She's a outfielder, plays softball. She also runs track, short distance stuff, and so one of her best attributes is her speed.
Nice.
Speed on the bases. She's an all-state academic, National Honor Society honors, first team district and first team conference softball.
Got a lot
stuff, and she's. This is an exciting time for Haley, and congratulations.
That's outstanding. Thanks, Chuck. Hey, congratulations, Haley, and thanks for choosing ViewMySport.com as one of your platforms to get exposure. Obviously, if you want to see more on Haley, you can go to the homepage on ViewMySport.com, click on her profile picture, and you'll be taken right to her profile itself. See all the background information. You college coaches out there, she's talented, fast, and a good student. That's the combination you're looking for. So check her out.
Yep.
All right. Now, again, we were getting into, the coach aspects and all that, and we'll try to break that down later in the show. Now, we were talking about travel ball, and high school ball and whatnot. Now, in addition to the leagues, there's also showcases and not combines, but you have your specialty skill camps and things like that. Now, did Morgan and is Kelly, participating in these types of things, or did they just simply play ball, travel, and hit all the tournaments, or did they go to any of these specialty camps?
We use, and it's probably a great opportunity to use a camp or a specialty camp or a skill assessment venue to accomplish two things. Number one is usually there's coaches available at those venues where you can go out, and what I have instructed my kids over the years, because we would send as many as 15 kids to one of these skill camps. And before we ever pitched and catched on a softball diamond, we were at these skill camps for two reasons. Number one is we wanted to shake the hand of the coach, get to know their personality, see how they instructed, how they gave instructions.
Good point.
And secondly, what we tried to do was seek out camps that also were in the universities that we potentially had an interest in.
And let me stop you there.
Okay.
When we're talking about camps and skills camps and things like that, you're primarily talking about the collegiate camps, the ones sponsored by the colleges.
Yes, and there is also today there's now becoming skill camps that professional services are putting on.
Right,
so they invite 25 coaches to the camp, and they put on all the drills, and the coaches either interact with the players at those camps. So there could be a University of Florida hitting camp with Coach Walton and his staff putting that hitting camp on, and 15 of our kids go there. Well, during that visit, not only are we learning how to hit from a top hitting school in the country, but it's a great time I remember walking out into the swamp. I had 10 families with us. We walked into the stadium, went down on the 50-yard line, and took our photo.
Nice.
So it's a great time to see the campus as well. Get to know, is this a place that I would like to come to school? So
kind of an unofficial visit.
Yeah, unofficial visit.
Kill two birds with one stone. You bet.
And so those are a great use of your time, a great use of your money, and the coach really gets to know you, and you get to know the coach well.
Make that all important first impression, which you have the one chance to do. Sure.
And as you get closer to the dates that you're going to have to start making commitments and get direction on where you want to play, you may eliminate certain camps, but it is a great time to use those opportunities. At one of the camps with my older daughter, the situation came up, and parents are usually scared of hearing this, no.
Please share.
but we use the opportunities at these camps to go in. And one of the players that plays with us, I said, well, where's Morgan at? And she said, well, Coach, she's in there taking care of business. And so, my daughter came out and had tears in her eyes, and basically had went in and went to the head coach's office after the camp and said, well, Coach, are you going to use me here at this university? Is there an opening for me? Are you ever going to make me a scholarship offer? Now, this is probably a 10th or an 11th grader asking this question.
Wow.
And the coach broke her heart and said, well, Morgan, I'm filled my roster spots for your year, and I don't see you coming here. And so Morgan had a little bit of a dialogue with her. But she says, okay, well, Dad, and on the ride home, she said, well, we can take this one off the list. Now, it made our job a lot easier because we knew we weren't chasing something that really wasn't ever going to materialize.
And that is a huge point. Sometimes, hearing that no, is better than them just stringing you along, because you're not wasting time, resources, money, the mental anguish. I mean, just that anxiety is just tremendous. And I think a lot of people, they would rather have a long list of maybes because it makes them feel better.
Yeah.
They can talk to people and say, oh, well, yeah, we're still actively, talking with this school and that school, when in reality, no, you're not.
Right.
So you better giddy up and go find some legitimate, and that's a great point for the parents. And parents, listen, this is something that you need to be doing with your child.
Absolutely.
You can't. Your child's doing what they're supposed to do. They're studying. They're taking tests. They're trying to be academically involved in as far as the school goes. They're out there playing ball. They're doing the training. They're doing all that stuff. You have the business mind. You have the maturity. You're supposed to be supporting your child and helping them through this. Not doing everything for them, but guiding them. So get involved and talk about that aspect. And you know what? Don't be afraid to hear no's. We had a volleyball player couple years ago who did the same thing, had a great profile, but they were actively chasing several colleges that they wanted to be there, but they never once talked to the coaches to find out, was there even room? And we got involved sort of by accident, and we happened to have some communication with the coaches, and all three of them were like, we're not taking anybody, we're loaded. They never stopped to ask. And so that's a very good point. Yeah. Yes, it can be brutal. But you know what? Better to have that brutal honesty so you can go on and spend your time better elsewhere.
Right.
So thank you for sharing that, because that is a huge, huge tip for the parents out there. I'd rather be working actively with 2 schools than have 10 maybes.
Yes,
Right.
yeah. And I think the other thing that happens, Roger, is if you when you go to these camps and you're out there, I see a lot of parents that are in front of their child, and they're dragging their child up to the coach, and they're telling that coach how good their kid is and things like that. The other advice that I would love to give parents, and the joke is, after doing this for 20 years, is that parents wear these rose-colored glasses, and if they can take those rose-colored glasses off and allow their child to lead them through the process. My support as a parent should be to prepare my child to make a good business presentation to these schools. So not only is it athletically driven, but if my child can bring a profile or some documentation that talks about their grades and their ACT scores, and the fact that if I have prepaid tuition, anything that will help that coach partner with that student athlete to make it a better fit for that program, sometimes is a feather in the hat of the athlete. So if there's 10 candidates looking for that one position, and I've got good grades, and that school's fixing to make a $100,000 investment in me, I think they want to invest in the person that they has the best chance of completing the process.
Sure,
absolutely.
So that camp is very good opportunity to bring that data, and I think y'all probably have some information on what each coach, kind of the laundry list of what they're looking for.
Yes, and that's something too. And we talk about the collegiate camps. Don't be afraid to pick up the telephone beforehand. If you know a month in advance you're going to be there, several weeks before, call the coach. Let him know, hey, coach, I'm going to be there. I'd like to meet you. I'd like to make sure that I get to introduce myself to you. Maybe get a little side evaluation time. They only, ask.
Right.
The worst case scenario is they say no, and you go about your business. But the fact is, you want to make sure that you're communicating, and if you can blaze that trail even before you get there, and that's what it comes down to, communication. And you hit the nail right on the head. Parents, don't make these calls for the kids. Like you said, prepare them, support them, get them positioned so they can deliver the final product. Because again, the kid's the one going to college. They're the ones that are going to be out there wearing the uniform, representing the program. So the coach has to get a good feel of what's this kid like.
Well, when you've done it the right way, when we walked up to a camp at the college that my daughter ultimately signed with, the 3 coaches that were the coaches at that university had seen her video, had her transcripts, knew a lot about her. She had filled out the athletic questionnaire, the recruit questionnaire, and so when she got there, because they had watched her video and all that, the head coach walks up and says, "You must be Morgan Taylor."
Wow.
And she says, yes, I am. And so she took her down and introduced her to the 2 assistant coaches and the players. This is a girl that has the 4.0 with the video. So if you can, like you said, pave that path, it'll make it a whole lot easier. Because if the coach knows you're interested in their program and they also know you can get into the school and be an asset to the program, with all the pressure on GPAs of teams today, use that as a selling point. So that's another point to stress how important academics are.
Oh, you bet.
But that was that, and then transitioning over to the actual travel ball. All these exposure tournaments today become real money makers for people that are putting them on. I will tell you, coaches, the reason they're attending those are because they're concerned. The comments that I've had, and we've probably had at least 15, if not 20 kids sign D1 scholarships in our program. They're concerned that a kid is a great camper, that they pave the path, they can do all the right things, they interview well, they communicate well, and the coach falls in love with them, and they're a great camper. But once you flip the lights on the field, and they put their uniform on, and the pressure's on, they're not able to respond in that setting as well. So the coaches use that environment to see you play ball, and they see you, how you handle pressure, how you interact with your teammates, how you interact in tough situations, how you overcome adversity. So I think they both have to continue to exist. I think you have to balance it out, and I think you have to really start off broad and don't be afraid to look at different levels of programs. I mean, a D1 program, D2 program, D3 program. Those educations that you get in these smaller schools are much better than most of our larger, pick on the Southeast Conference for a minute.
No, wait a minute.
Yeah, well when you're
Let's
done.
Let's not get crazy.
Well, when you're done, we're looking at the requirements to get in. One's saying, okay, you got to have a 33 on your ACT, and the other one says, well, you can get in with a 21.
Right.
So that D3 program or that D2 program gives you a phenomenal education. So I think you have to start broad, open up doors, and then narrow your search.
Sure.
And my dream school, my daughter's dream school is the same as everyone else. It's probably the University of Florida. We'd all love to be playing there. But at the end of the day, not everybody's going to be able to play there.
Right.
And so
you have to have your backups.
I would definitely try to advise every parent to find a program that will actually balance, give you enough time. If you play 4 tournaments a month, you cannot attend camps and get your interview and your personal relationship built with those coaches. So sometimes trying to win trophies and being in the ultimate competitor works against you for the other half of the process. So I think you have to have a balance. Where you travel geographically also is important. That you play showcases in California, and you got 10 schools from California that want you. Well, if you're not willing to be more than 5 hours from home, then maybe you should consider.
Don't even open up the can of worms to begin with. Sure. Tell you what, Chris, we're going to take another break, pay a few bills, got to grab me something to drink, and we'll come back and we're going to continue this line of discussion, because I think this is great information. This is what the parents need to hear. So we'll be right back. So please stay tuned and join us.
The goal at Marsh & McLennan Agency is to present you with risk management solutions that offer smart ways to cut costs while still providing quality. Some of the many products and services Marsh & McLennan Agency can provide in the areas of employee health and welfare include evaluate benefit providers based on premium levels, plan design, and network match. Negotiate with group medical, dental, vision, long-term disability, and accidental death and dismemberment providers to bring you a quality plan at a reasonable cost. Enroll employees and their dependents into available benefit options through the use of traditional enrollment, online enrollment, or a combination. Employee assistance programs, and human resource assistance and consultation. Let Marsh & McLennan Agency help you identify, plan for, and respond to critical business issues and risks. For more information, call Marsh & McLennan Agency today at 888-292-9806. That's 888-292-9806.
All right, we're back. Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you guys have had a great time with the last two segments of the show. I know we have. We always tend to learn information, and, what goes on with one individual is not always what's going on with another. So anytime we have the opportunity to talk to somebody like Chris Taylor here, it's a treat. For those of us that like to reach out and help the parents and the kids, ultimately the kids, try to fulfill their dreams, of playing their collegiate sport. Anything that we can offer that'll be helpful. If you get one little thing that you say, wow, I didn't know that, our job's done.
That's right.
Preferably you'd like to pick up a few more things, but if you don't pick up anything after our show, that means you definitely know it all. Believe me, because we're covering the gamut.
That's right.
Now, before break, we were talking about college levels and things like that, and the camps and whatnot. I think we've shared enough information there as far as, we could probably talk for several hours about all the ins and outs of camps and the intricacies and the different things. You'll see sort of a repetitive message all throughout the show as far as, communication and letting, the student athlete do the work, and the parent's role is more of the preparation and support of, academics, things like that. Now, something, though, that we touch base on, I want to make sure that we drill into all of you out there watching. Yes, D1. And we talk about this when we talk about all the sports and when we get into these different discussions. Obviously, D1, that's like the pinnacle. You're on ESPN, you're on TV, you're on all the different. I guess you can't just say ESPN anymore. There's so many, different sports networks now. But ESPN was that the cutting edge, the leaders for so long. So we'll use that as the example. But I think you get where we're coming from. The glory of being on TV and whatnot. Well, reality is, as Chris, you so eloquently put it, not everybody is going to be able to go and get a scholarship and play. There are just so many, hundreds of thousands of not just people participating and competing, but ones that could actually, commit and get offers. They're that good, grade-wise and skill-wise. But when it comes down to it, not everybody's going to go to the D1. Not everybody can go to one program. So, as a parent, as the athlete, when you're looking at schools, you take a lot into account. First of all, as you stated before, how far away is from home. Mm-hmm. If you think that you're going to bail out and you don't feel comfortable being far away from home, then don't be looking at the state of California if you're living in Florida or vice versa. Because there's a lot of time and money and effort put into the whole process, and you to uproot and get out there to just wash out after a year and then start all over and come home and then you feel miserable. Try to do it right the first time. So by that we mean research. Talk to the coaches, talk to some administrators, talk to a guidance counselor, talk to students who go to a particular school. Now, it's probably unfair to say, have your mind made up going into college what you want to do as far as major and all. You got to kind of have an idea. Mm-hmm. But the fact is, when you go to college, you're going to be exposed to things that you might think, whoa, didn't even think about that. Mm-hmm. Didn't really think that I wanted to be a horse vet or, whatever the case is. You might come across something that draws you. Know what the colleges have in their stable, so to speak. Find out what their specialties are, what kind of programs they offer. Because when it's all said and done, as the commercial says, X percentage of our athletes go on to become professional in something other than their sport. Mm-hmm. Well, have that figured out the best you can. And parents, that's where you come in. Help research the schools. So not just location, but also what do they have to offer. Size. If you're an introvert and you don't like crowds, maybe sitting in a class of 500 of your closest friends.
That's right.
That may not be for you. Or maybe your learning ability, you work better in individual smaller settings. So then going to a giant school probably isn't going to benefit you. So that's something to consider. Again, pick your poison. Whatever it is that seems to be what's going to draw you. Now, some kids that, they just think, whatever, we're just looking for rides. We just want scholarships. We're looking for money. Well, in some cases, you may not have a choice. It may be like, well, if I can't afford to pay for college and this is the only school that's making me an offer, I got to take it. I got to adapt. I got to make it work somehow. That's a very real path as well when you're in this process. But if you can prepare ahead of time, and that's why we talk about, when we talk about the recruiting process early, doesn't mean you have to get out there and start playing ball in front of coaches. We're saying start doing your reconnaissance. ViewMySport.com has a couple of great directories. One of those happens to be where you can go and you can sort the list of colleges. You can find out where maybe, Division III, maybe Ivy League is what you're looking for. And, because of your academics, well, then you can sort through and get a list of colleges, and you can click on the name and it'll take you right to their website so you can start doing some of this research. We've tried to streamline it so we can help your research process. So again, drill down, look into this, be it JUCO level, which we had a discussion earlier about that. People used to put a stigma on JUCO. The junior college programs have A, gotten better, and B, because of the talent trickling down, because not everybody can go to the higher levels, so it's trickling down. I mean, maybe you need to go to a junior college to develop your skill set, maybe to get your study habits better, maybe just to kind of wean yourself into college life. At the same time, you can play sports. So whatever your sport may be it softball, whatever the case may be, so don't count out potential offers that could come from junior college. You get your 2 years in and you get to transfer to a school and hopefully carry it on. There's nothing wrong with that. So as we've had our previous guests also tip, spread yourself out. Get your information out into a different variety, and you'll start kind of finding out where the interest is coming from. If all you're getting are, D2 or maybe NAIA offers, guess what? Maybe that's your skill set. I don't care if you're the top-notch player on your team, at your travel ball or whatever. Locally, maybe you're, the stud. But and you've probably seen this, Chris, where you've got those kids that are really, really good, but their good maybe isn't as good as someone else's in a different state. So be flexible. I guess that's the point that I want to make. Be flexible, get the research, spread it out, and then see what happens. Kind of like fishing. More lines in the water,
that's right.
More chances of getting the bite.
Right.
May not be the bite you want, but by God, I'd rather eat a little fish than starve.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Now, Chris, let me ask you something. To kind of put a final nail in this, in this lid, because of your involvement in coaching and the programs that you've been involved with, not just with your daughters, but you've seen a lot of kids. I mean, you've seen them go to a variety of programs. I mean, what is that like? I mean, what are you hearing? What's kind of your take on that?
You mean as far as the actual college that they end up going to?
Yeah, I mean, as far as being open to going to different levels of colleges, not just the coveted D1,
Well, there's two things that I've learned, from, and what I think we pride ourselves the most on as an organization, is that, we have in our community, we had, say, 6 girls go to programs last year from the local high school. And so far, 4 of them have already come back. So what I'm taking to heart.
Come back meaning they've gone away and they went,
survive the
yikes.
process. They could not survive the process.
Please take us down that path.
And so what we feel that is very important as a parent, number one, is I really don't know what I should do to prepare my kid for college, because it is not the same as when I went to college. Okay,
Frank the Tank here.
Yeah. And so you don't. And I went to an all-black college, by the way, so I was Sugar Cube, and I was I was the minority. I had a minority scholarship when I went.
Sugar Cube. Well, you were deemed from here on out Sugar Cube. Thank you for sharing that with us.
But what I noticed was a couple of things that were important. Was I would ask my daughter and all of our girls, because I went on numerous visits with other kids in our program.
Oh, nice.
And I had our travel ball coaches, Kristen and Jenny, and them would go on visits as well. And we would have an entourage of golf carts, touring the campuses and all that. And the kid and the coaches were up front, me and the athletic director or the trainer, whoever were in the back, or their travel ball coach was in the back. But what you learned was to make sure that school fit their needs, academically as well as financially, and as well as, kind of from a support perspective when mom and dad were immediately yanked away from them for the first time.
Yeah, who's their surrogates,
Right. And so the point that we would try to make is, if the coach wasn't there, would you still be comfortable here? Because where it really became challenging was not Monday through Thursday when they were practicing and studying and all that. It was on Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday, where they had no friends and and so that was the moment of truth. What path am I going to go down? Am I going to get in trouble and stay out all night, not make my 6 o'clock workout the next morning? Or am I going to, find the right group of kids to kind of help me get through this? So,
good point.
So you should be seeking out, institutions and programs that you feel, fit the needs of your children, as well as the child should be responding back to you and saying, they took me out, when I had to spend a night there on campus, they took me out on a all-nighter, and I don't think I would last very long up here because I don't drink, and they made fun of me because I don't drink. Those are the kind of...
A lot of peer pressure.
Yeah, that's the open communication you have to have with your child in order to make sure that they're in the right place at the right time. And, I joke with my daughter today. She said, Dad, the first 2 things I learned at the school that I'm going to today was they had one term called pistol whip and the other one called curve stomp. And they said, if you're out past 10 o'clock at night, you're either going to get pistol whipped or curve stomped in downtown Atlanta. So, I said, well, are we okay going here? And so I spent some time talking to people, what kind of, we developed a comfort level with that program. And if you take the approach of desperation that if you offer, I'm accepting, there's a very good likelihood of failure because you're just taking whatever's given to you. We try to stress maximize your 5 visits. I remember Coach Jenny telling us, Chris, you need to guarantee me that Morgan's going to take 5 visits. Go 5 places, look at 5 different things. And that was our commitment to her, was to make sure that we took those visits, and most of the kids in our program will try to maximize out the number of visits.
And that's a good point. Write that down, parents. Put it on your refrigerator. Make yourself that commitment and stick to it, because for obvious reasons.
Yes, and I've been amazed at there's some kids that the parents would say, well, she doesn't want to go to this school, and this school because they're 6 hours away. And I can watch every game regardless of where my daughter plays because of the internet today. So I don't miss any of her games. I enjoy getting away for 5 hours, but also have another daughter that I am obligated to help her live out her dream.
Good point.
And I do find that if you truly sit down the child and the family together and they go visit this program, we had a girl that went probably 7 or 8 hours away, and her parents would have never dreamed that she would have went that far away. And she said, look, out of all the places, this is where I feel the best fit.
Nice.
And it gives her that much better chance of survival, because when the chips are down, she's got to live through this, like I say, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday night, and then be ready for Monday when everything goes back to normal again.
Right.
So I would tell you, Roger, that those are the things that, always look at the institution. Don't go play for that coach. That coach is just an asset on top of your decision.
A tool to utilize. Yeah. That's correct.
Make sure that you're a good fit there. I thought you had a great point about researching, degrees and programs, because when you walk in there and say, Coach, I'm interested in playing here at the University of XYZ, one of the things that coach is going to say to you is, so which program do you like the most from an educational perspective?
Bingo.
And when you start spitting and sputtering, they know you're not really that interested.
Right. Yeah, they're not that committed.
And just a quick story was, my daughter had done a lot of research. She's actually in the Earth and Atmospheric Science program.
Oh, very nice.
She'll probably intern with NASA, probably her junior year. And
outstanding.
But in her college visits, the assistant coach asked her at another university, so what program are you interested in participating in here at our university? And she said, well, I'm going to actually participate in the weather forecasting, and she named it off and all that. And and so then he just skipped right over that, and then went on to criminal justice, physical education, and there were 6 other of those degrees in there. They have that particular school had the #1 weather forecasting program in the country.
Wow.
That coach just didn't know about. And as they started asking each college student or prospective athlete what program they wanted to go in, my daughter expressed that she wanted to go into their weather forecasting program, and then the coach went on around to the other players and really commented on how good the criminal justice program was and the physical fitness program and all those things. But this particular college had probably the top meteorology program in the country, and that coach really wasn't that familiar with it. So, but the moral of the story is when the chips are down, they're going to look you in the eye and ask you academically what you're looking for out of this institution, and you better know why you better have done your homework
from the horse's mouth, so to speak. I mean, that excellent point. And again, we keep stressing that, grades. It's how you carry yourself too, and that shows a level, I think, of maturity, and that's what the coach. I mean, here's the thing: looking for that collegiate scholarship as an athlete, it's like looking for a job. It's like, you put in application. Well, you can put in the application online and then just sit back and wait and see what happens. No, you follow up with a phone call. You try to get that communication and that rapport going. Ultimately, you're going to have to meet that individual, be it the person you're working for directly or the person of that department. And as you said, they're going to look you in the eye. They're going to ask you questions. How you handle yourself is how you separate yourself from everybody else. And there's no difference between looking for a job and trying to get this scholarship. Those paths that you have to go down are the same. So as a student athlete, preparing yourself, you can't just be like, man, look at my highlight tapes, and you see a lot of that. It's like lobbing a grenade and running. No, you have to be prepared to look that coach in the eye, as Chris has said, and tell them what your interests are. And the better you can present yourself, the better you are going to appeal to these coaches, period. And we hear that time and time again from the college coaches. So excellent point to bring up, Chris. Thank you very much. Now, as far as the recruiting process and all that kind of stuff, I mean, when did you guys, or when did you as the parent, when did you really start thinking, okay, college scholarship, let's get on the wagon. What do we need to start doing? At what point did you start shifting gears and thinking about that?
Well, there's two good ways to get a feel for, how that works. And going back to the camps, like at colleges or high school camps or college camps, if you'll solicit feedback from the coaches, they usually can give you guidance on what level of play. So one of the things you should do as a family when you walk up at the end of a camp at the University of Florida, you can walk up to Coach Walton, or there may be 11 other coaches at that camp. I've been to camps with as many as 25 coaches attending them, and they may be D1 all the way down to D3.
From different college rates,
and as a father and a daughter, we walk up, and my daughter would do all the heavy lifting. Thank you, appreciate it. Here's what I learned from you. I really would like to come visit you one day and see what your program is about. And, can I ask you a question? Do you see me at my current level of play being able to help your softball team? And we were looking for that feedback. I had a D1 program tell my youngest daughter, I asked that question, and the truth hurt, but it was the truth. My kids are 5'1" or 5'3" in the roster because we measure them in their metal cleats.
Not exactly Amazons, but
we put their metal cleats on and put them on concrete, and then we measured them, and that's what we put on their profiles. But the size and the strength and the ability to hit the ball out of the park. Well, this particular program was looking for a masher, somebody who could hit home runs. So my little 5 foot, 3-inch, firecracker that can score from first to home on that ball hit to the fence. She wasn't a fit for that program.
Wasn't what they were looking for.
Just in a non-threatening, communicational, open environment. The feedback we got was, well, I would continue to get stronger, and I would continue to work on hitting to opposite field. And you're by far one of the fastest kids out here at this camp, and speed never slumps.
Sure.
And you know what you're doing. You know the game. So our presentation to our future employer, which is exactly what you've talked about.
Right.
My daughter's getting paid over $150,000 to play softball at the program she's at today. We've got one girl that's getting paid over $200,000 because these scholarships are worth a lot of money.
Sure.
They don't go in my pocket, but the education is worth it.
Means that they're not pulling money out of your
That's
pocket.
right. So what we did was we were able to take the feedback from almost all of these 20 coaches at these particular camps, and that's the starting point for a 9th grader, 8th grader, 9th grader, 10th grader to find out where am I at and take that advice. And you don't have to 100% agree with it,
Right.
but you can take it as constructive, and you can build from it.
Use what works.
Yes.
Certainly.
And that's basically what has been beneficial to us as a family, is because I will tell you this: the softball coaches, they have a lot of integrity, and there's a lot of honesty. Their handshake is their bond. We have kids that have on a handshake have committed to a school, and that school has made a coaching change, and that athletic director will call that 10th grader up and say, your scholarship is with
Our commitment is still solid.
It's with you, not with the coach. And I think there's some questions, when you do a visit, that you may ask. I could give you a whole nother session on things you should probably get confirmed when you make that visit.
Sure.
But so I think it is.
We'll
important.
hold you to that. We'll get that list. We'll probably post it on the website or on our Facebook page to make sure we're sharing that.
But I think it is critical that you what I think, and I get good feedback from the travel ball coaches, but they're in a vacuum. They see them every day.
Right.
I am hopeful that they're biased and believe that these 12 kids on this travel ball team are the best 12 kids in the country.
Right.
But I also need feedback from these other. So another value of going to a camp is to get feedback from the coaches.
Gotcha. Very good. Well, excellent points, Chris, and we appreciate you being candid and getting into the honest aspects of it. Tell you what, we're going to take another break. I heard a rumor that there's a donut special going on, so this might be a longer break than we had
It is
intended,
National Donut Day, actually, it is today.
I love me some donuts.
That's right.
We'll give a Krispy Kreme plug across the street there. Anyway, stick around. We'll be right back.
Through the strength of our management team, our geographic presence, and our world-class value-added services, the Marsh & McLennan Agency provides public and privately held companies with risk management and employee benefit insight that helps enable you to flourish in this ever-changing and competitive market. Let Marsh & McLennan Agency help you identify, plan for, and respond to critical business issues and risks. For more information, call Marsh & McLennan Agency today at 888-292-9806.
All right, thanks for coming back and joining us. We're stuffed. I remember when I used to be able to eat a dozen donuts and not feel bad, but I might have to take me a little nap after the show.
Right. That's right.
All right, now we're just pulling your leg. Obviously, we wouldn't eat a dozen donuts, maybe 6 tops. Yeah. But anyway, we're glad that you're back with us. We have gotten into some great information. I think from a parental standpoint, if you've been watching, which I hope you have been, and making notes, that the information that we're sharing with you is invaluable. I mean, whether you have one child, two children, whether it's softball, baseball, football, whatever, the information that we're sharing is applicable. So anyway, we're hoping that you're getting out of it what our intention is. Again, as we stated earlier in the show, if we didn't hit on something that you're curious about, send your question and we'll get you an answer back immediately. So again, we are here to help. We are your recruiting department, if you will. Now, we were talking before the break, of course, we are getting into, the particulars as far as research and what makes sense and trying to pick the right program and things of that nature. I think we hit on some good points. Now, Chris, or Sugar Cube, as his friends like to call him. You had to be tuning into the previous segment of the show to understand where that just came from. Now, with your first daughter, and of course, again, you're right in the middle of it now. Obviously, you know, the recruiting paths, as we already talked about, can go in different directions. I mean, what is it that you know you did or are doing and recommend as far as the recruiting process itself? I mean, what's the key out there as far as exposure and things of that nature? I mean, what exactly is it that you were into?
Well, I think once you have the classroom taken care of first, the physical fitness and the strength and conditioning, and then you've got a great travel ball program so that you're going to play at the highest level of competition and continue to develop your softball IQ. Once that's in place, and you've set up a budget, so to speak, to where you can balance your tournaments and your camps so that you can get in the face of those coaches.
Excellent point there, because softball's not cheap. The travel, staying, overnight and things like that. Yeah, that is definitely something to consider.
And then I would tell you that, the other night when we were sitting down with my youngest daughter, we generally communicate with 10 schools geographically in the area where we'll be playing that week. So when we go to Chattanooga, Tennessee, there's some schools that we've done everything we've talked about. We've researched who's got forensic science or whatever my youngest daughter's, what it's called at that particular school. And we have universities that have sent us what they're looking for as well. From an academic, we have a little checklist we get from them. Well, what I found, and my wife mentioned this to me, that when we went on to your website, we actually found a resource in there, and had we had all this data back when my first daughter was going through the recruiting process, we'd have been a much more efficient in the process. So I will give you a shameless plug for View My Sports, because
Thank you.
I think the way that you have it set up is today. I've sat in the actual coach's office and watched them go through profiles. In other words, while my daughter's touring the campus and making her visits, I sat in there and watched them look at letters, look at DVDs, and look at things on the computer. And I found that the ones that got their most attention was the ability to look at the GPA and the ACTs, what they did in the community, what kind of person they were, and then they kind of had that on one side of the page, and then the other thing they were looking at the actual skill set. So the coaches seem to now have pressure on them to find the whole person. They can't just look at the video and not take into consideration the grades and everything that are involved there. So I found that by putting these links and this information onto a website like yours, I can market my child or provide the necessary information, grades and transcripts, everything that college coach may want. And when they get that all bundled and packaged together, it makes it a whole lot easier on them to say, look, this is a keeper, and this is not enough information for me really to pursue.
Sure.
So that kind of would give you the whole process of, I would tell my kids that, you go on Facebook, 2 hours a night or whatever you're spending, on the
That's
system.
on the light side.
That's right. So I said, let's just dedicate 10, 15, 20% of that time to your future. And so that's where mom and dad would come in and help them go through. And that's where the mom and dad has to support that. Literally, in talking to some of these coaches, they would say, well, Chris, would you recruit a kid like this? And I would see the email, and it was a canned email. It was just, and it would have, it may be to Florida State University, but it's attention Coach Walton, from
someone else.
Oops,
yeah,
so, somebody forgot to replace the.
That's right.
They didn't. So there wasn't attention to detail, and so I can visualize, a parent saying, "Well, Susie, you better get your 10 emails sent out." So she goes click, and everything
Cookie
goes,
cuts and
they have no clue what damage has been done. So I think it is important that the family stays involved in that process, and that you make your personalized communications. I mean, I've been very impressed with my youngest daughter when she's got one school that she likes because it's close to the ocean, and she likes the fact that the water's clear instead of sandy like it is here in Norfolk.
Right.
So, she's communicating with a coach. She let her know, I'm coming to your camp in 2 weeks. Excellent. Here's what my grades. So she's doing everything we've talked about today, and I even liked the fact that at the end she said, "Go sales fish," or whatever the name of it. You know, she's catching on to the fact that, look, I've taken enough interest in your program that you take some interest in me. And what I am very proud of is even though some kids can't be communicated with from a legal standpoint until they hit certain ages in the recruiting process, at least coaches can feed back camp information and things like that.
I you know what? And I'm very glad to hear you say that, because that's something that we promote. You know, everybody says, well, the calendar says you can't have this kind of contact. Just because you're not hearing back from a coach does not mean that they're not paying attention to your information. I get a lot of emails and calls from parents, you know, requesting our help. Oh, we sent all this information out and we're not hearing anything. Well, you know, they're busy. They get thousands of requests. That doesn't mean you cannot pick up the phone and follow up.
Absolutely.
I know back when, you know, in my corporate days, I wouldn't even consider hiring somebody unless they followed up after a one-on-one interview. They wouldn't make my short list. And a lot of coaches, I've been told the same thing by them. If we're not getting proactive interest from them, then you know, unless they are just absolute studs, which, you know, they're going to get that interest anyway. But you know, to try to separate the wheat from the chaff, as they say, you know. So that's a very good point, though, that these kids don't take silence as non-interest. Do everything you can. Communicate, do it with, like you said, personality, not cookie cutter, you know, process. Here's the thing: the parents and the athletes, they want personal responses from the coaches. They don't want canned marketing letters, because that's not true interest. We'll give it back to them too. Give them what you expect from them as well. So that's a great point, Chris, and thanks for bringing that up.
And just to expand on that, just so a parent, and this is probably more to the athlete, because it is very discouraging to do all this work and not get any reward for it.
Sure.
I will tell you, going through this process, I think it was September 1st at midnight, whenever you become a junior on that year, whenever I got an email sent to my oldest daughter's email address that said, I wanted to be the first coach to respond to all the correspondence that you've sent to me over the last 2 years.
Outstanding.
12:01 a.m.
Outstanding.
And then to have programs like Alabama and Tennessee and Florida and them come up and say, well, the reason that I'm here today to watch your team play was I got an email from Kelly. And you know, that to me is what this is all about. We thought enough to put the energy and the effort into the email and into the communication, and they thought enough to come bless us with their presence.
That's outstanding.
And you know, they may see my daughter at 5'3" and say, well, you know, it is what it is, but just the respect to come out, and that's what college softball is all about.
That is outstanding.
And that is also beneficial to a team that you know, we've given out on this one team probably 8 or 9 scholarships just because of the emails. You know, when they come to see one player, they may see 6 players.
Exactly. Exactly.
So I think that's important, that just to keep the parents and the children or the prospects to understand this is not an immediate reward. Sometimes it's
a long process. And the thing is, you always need to be at your best, because just as you just stated, you don't know who's going to be in the stands. You don't know when a coach is going to pop up. They might be here for, you know, somebody else, and you get discovered. You just don't know. So the key is, do everything you can, work hard at it, but work smart at it, and represent yourself well, because again, you just never know when those opportunities are out there. And again, when you're being proactive, when you're out communicating with the coaches and you know, the different college programs and whatnot, I mean, you know, do all of that stuff and do it consistently, and then let the chips fall where they fall. I mean, again, you got a lot of competition out there. You know, I think enough said. Let me ask you something, Chris. Our parting wisdom for you to share, you know, with the parents out there. You know, if the parents sitting out there going, Chris, come on, man, give me, what's the secret? What's the magic that's going to make it all happen? I mean, what are your tips for the parents out there who are in the position that you're in, you know, kind of floundering, trying to figure out what's what, maybe we'll say this, the parents who haven't had the daughter go through it, the newbies, what's your tips to them? Figure your top 3. What do you think would be helpful?
Well, I think trust the process that we've talked about today, and partnering with I definitely would find a resource like your website, your organization, to actually come in and help, because you got to have that piece of the puzzle.
Certainly.
A college coach today only has so many days a year that they can actually go out and recruit, and if they go to California and recruit 3 days out there, well, that's 3 days less. They're not going to get to see your daughter. So
Sure.
I think the wisdom part of it is, the first thing I would do is make sure that you balance, the education and the passion and the love of the game and all that. Because if you push one too much over the other, you're going to find that by the time the 11th grade gets here, there's burnout. And a coach, believe it or not, doesn't look for success. They look for how you handle failure. Okay,
Good point.
And I think that my daughter had 121 at bats when the coach from the school that she finally signed with. She had 16 coaches watching her in one game. That was probably we had 16 coaches there. The coach that ultimately signed her watched her. She had 121 at bats through that season with 2 strikeouts.
Wow.
She struck out 5 times in a row at that viewing when that coach was there. But what the coach told us was, she's going to strike out in college. Basically, having 5 strikeouts in a row, the coach later told me that she wasn't impressed with the 5 strikeouts. She was impressed with how she went back and told the next batter coming up what to look out for, the out and away pitch and things like that. So she felt like that was very a very good indicator of what kind of player she was ultimately going to be for her university. In addition to that, probably the other piece of wisdom that I'll try to pass along to the parents. A lot of times the college coaches in today's environment, they'll wear their shirt. Sometimes they will, sometimes they won't. Sometimes they just come up in a Nike jacket or Under Armour or something. But a parent is usually an extension of their child. So
Good
that
point.
when a parent's in there talking about the coach doesn't do this, the team doesn't do this, and she should be playing in this position, she should be playing in this position. If a coach matches that up with the child, usually that will diminish or reduce the opportunities for success in this process. So I think that as a parent, your goal should not be to question, especially when you're in travel ball environment.
Sure.
It's a competitive environment, and the coaches are sending a message to the college coaches are telling the travel ball coach, I need to see this player at this position, and I need to see what they can do. Literally, I was getting text messages from our coach telling me where to position kids in between innings, because she was back there with eight or nine coaches that were viewing our team.
Oh, nice.
So it is that stressful. It is a very tough environment. There's a lot at stake, and therefore, if you sit there and continue to complain, go up and talk to a coach on behalf of your child, sometimes that's
badger them.
Yeah, that's sometimes the kiss of death. I've literally had parents go up and tell the D1 coach that their daughter's the best player on that team. And later on, that coach would come to us and say, what was so-and-so's name, and we would give it to him, and she'd just scratch him off the list. So I'm not trying to say all parents are bad and that coaches don't want to talk to parents, but there will be a point in time when you get on their campus where that coach is going to say to you, are there any questions?
Sure,
that you
and the coaches will seek you out. If they want your input,
Yes.
they'll seek you out. That's a great point, because I think a lot of parents – their perception is, I'm helping,
Yes.
when in actuality they're
hindering.
hindering badly.
Yep.
Right, and the coaches have asked us, to help deliver that message, because it is a violation for a parent to talk to a coach in certain settings,
right.
And so if they're trying to actively recruit your daughter, and you go up and talk to them as a parent in the wrong setting, they have to take your daughter off their recruiting list.
You could blow the whole thing.
Yes, and so that's I guess in the end of the day kind of the a piece of advice, and I think at the end of the day I would tell every parent, mother and child, father daughter, mother daughter, to embrace this process, to enjoy it, to enjoy the nights in the hotels, getting up at 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock a.m. to be to the 8 o'clock game, to enjoy this, because these days are going to go by so fast.
Oh, yes, they do.
They're just, it is amazing to me the conversations that me and my older daughter have and my younger daughter have about the fun we had at, Fort Lauderdale or in Tampa or in Colorado. We remember those days like no tomorrow.
Well, that's what they say. It's the journey. That's the fun. Yes, the journey. That's just the means to the end.
Right.
Yeah.
You got to enjoy it.
And I'll tell you probably the biggest piece of advice. I mean, dads ask me this all the time. How do you dads handle things differently than moms. Moms a lot of times don't have that. They want the daughter to feel good and be fed well and look good and all those things, but they don't have that drive, if you want to call it. The dad's the one that's always the pusher. He's out there saying, "Get out there, we got to practice, we got to work on this," and the mom's trying to help keep balance. And sometimes you got to work as a team to keep balance, because I would push my kids to the edge, and my wife would kind of back us down and say,
she talk them off the edge.
It is okay for her to go spend 2 hours and 15 minutes at the prom. It is her prom, by the way. So I think you gotta have that balance. But I'll tell you the most critical thing that happens in this process. There's a point in time, and you'll know when it is as a family. My time was basically with Morgan was we flew out to Oklahoma City for the College World Series. We had some friends that were in the College World Series, and we felt like, this is a great time to go out and watch it. So we flew out, and my daughter said to me, "Well, Dad, why are we the only ones in the stadium?" Well, I didn't want to tell her that I didn't realize there was a 2-hour time difference. I guess it goes back to the college that I attended.
Oops.
But,
sugar cube.
So we were standing there, and we had ESPN crew up here, and we had the grounds crew down there, and we were about the only people in the stadium. And so we sat there, and I said, "Well, Morgan, while we're here," I said, "let's talk about something." I said, "This weekend, I want you to visualize yourself being on that field. I want you to tell me if you feel that you're willing to work hard enough and do whatever it takes to one day show up on that field." And so we talked about that. That was kind of what I consider to be the turning point in her maturity in working towards a college scholarship.
And she was what year? Was she a senior or junior?
No, she was probably in about 9th grade or so, wasn't it?
Yeah, she was young.
Yeah.
Okay.
And a whole nother segment that you can have one day will be how to work through injuries, because she had the ultimate double whammy, a knee and a shoulder wound at the same time. Yeah. But that's a whole nother hour seminar. But
month seminar.
Yeah. But the mountaintop experience is where the child, the daughter, takes ownership of whatever it takes to get me to where I need to be. As a parent, my proudest moment was when I used to take the bucket, the bat, and the balls and say, "Get out here." And when that turned to when she said, "Dad, can we go work on my game, or can we go practice?"
She had the bucket and the bat saying, "Get out here, Dad."
That's where you ultimately have to get to as a family and a parent, because you can push, and push, and the minute that daughter steps out from off your field and onto that university's field, it's either gonna be such a rude awakening that that kid's gonna fail out versus become an achiever. And one of the things that the reason I use that as a moral lesson, I had to learn it the hard way, but I learned it early. And so when the chips were down in college and my daughter was going an 0 for 20, batting slump, she went and rallied her friends and got buckets of balls and tees and went to the batting cage to work to get herself back, because Daddy wasn't there. And there's going to be a lot of times Daddy and Mom are not going to be there through that process. So if you can get that in the process early, I think, number one, it will guarantee the success of your child once they get to that next level. Right. But it also will almost ensure that they are going to get to that next level.
With the with those types of lessons learned, it's not just for the sport. I mean, we're talking about being able to adjust in life. You know, when you hit that adverse issue, gosh, work's tough. Well, mom and dad aren't there to, pick me up and dust me off. I got to pick myself up and dust myself off and figure out the right direction. I mean, you hear these stories all the time where, sports transition into real life. Well, they do. Yeah. I mean, we're not just making it up because it sounds good. It's legit. Right. And so that's a very good point, Chris, and we appreciate you, sharing that with us. Tell you what, we appreciate everything you've shared with us today. This has been, in my opinion, one of the best shows that we've had, because I can't tell you the amount of, letters and emails and phone calls I get with questions about a lot of what we've talked about. And it's kind of like the parents. The parents can tell the child, don't step in front of the bus. Don't step in front of the bus. Well, they're going to step in front of the bus because you're just parenting them. As soon as they hear it from somebody else, all of a sudden the lights go on and it makes sense. So, again, we can answer questions and whatnot, but it's great to have people like Chris Sugar Cube Taylor here stepping in under the limelight and, sharing his experience, because his story isn't unique. It's not unique. It's unique to him. It's unique to he and his family, but it's not unique in the world of recruiting and high school and collegiate sports. So believe me, parents and athletes, you can pick up a lot. Listen to what Chris is saying. And again, if you need validation, if you need confirmation on something you're going through and we haven't touched base, or maybe we haven't gone into enough detail, because as you've said, and we could talk probably for a month's long worth of shows and just scratch the surface. Right. But we hope we've shared enough information with you to get you thinking, and we are here to help. We can even direct questions directly to Chris if it's something that you need from him. But we have a great board of advisors. We're here to answer your questions, to get you through the process and make it enjoyable. Make it enjoyable. That's the bottom line. All right, well, that's a wrap. That's another great show. Again, thank you very much to our guest, Chris Taylor.
Enjoyed it.
Sugar Cube. And,
Cube.
Yeah. We'll call you the Cube.
The Cube.
The Cube from now on. Chuck, thanks again. Outstanding
My pleasure.
show. We've done great.
Yep.
We are looking forward to another great show next week. Please tune in next Wednesday and catch our show. Tell all your friends. Tell everybody. We're here to help.
That's right.
With that, just remember, enjoy the ride.